Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, the 15th of September, 2025, 710 days of war and violence, death, and destruction. An update from the last 24 hours. I'm joining you from New York City. We're launching our Armenian Advisory Council at an event at the Vartan Cathedral here in New York tomorrow. Armenians in the Middle East, in Armenia proper, in the area of Nagorno-Karabakh, which is also called Artsakh, of which Armenians have been displaced. Armenians in Jerusalem and also in Lebanon and other parts of the Middle East are a part of the disappearing Christians in the Arab world. An update specifically from Gaza. The Israeli military yesterday announced it struck multiple high-rise buildings in Gaza City in what appeared to be accelerating assaults on the metropolitan area. Hospital officials say that Israeli strikes killed more than 130 Palestinians just since Saturday. According to officials, the military ground operation of Gaza City could begin as early as today, and residents reported strikes in the north and the west in neighborhoods throughout Gaza City. The IDF launched a broad wave of airstrikes, and the military continues to prepare for those ground operations. About a quarter of the residents have left the city as of today. Defense establishment leaders warned against the operation's futility and high risk. I'll talk more about some of those battles within the Israeli government in a minute. The IDF has estimated that operations will cause more residents to flee. And as I reported over the weekend, some residents are fleeing to these residential or humanitarian zones and then actually heading back to Gaza City because the conditions are so horrific. There's no safe place for Palestinians in Gaza to go. According to reports, at least 33 Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours, and those injured equals 316. The United Nations' Francesca Albanese said that Israel has been using unconventional weaponry to make Gaza City unlivable, but she did not elaborate on the specifics. In the occupied West Bank, there's a report that Israeli soldiers have clashed with militants in the northern city, in the central West Bank, in the north of Nablus, and that those clashes had occurred over the last 24 hours. And a border police officer in East Jerusalem killed a man who attempted to cross the separation barrier. The Israeli border police person said that they had shot a man who was attempting to cross the separation barrier into East Jerusalem. The Red Crescent confirmed he was killed in the incident. Updates from Israel specifically, it was announced just tonight that the Hostage Families Forum plans on rallying outside of Netanyahu's home in response to reports about the invasion of Gaza City. They not only are calling for an end to the war in Gaza, but they believe that the invasion will result in the death of any living hostages. The families group warns that the writing is on the wall as the IDF reportedly launches Gaza City operations. They expressed deep concern about the operation being launched. They said that the lives of the hostages are at risk, and tonight could be the final night for the hostages who are barely surviving. In a statement, they accused Netanyahu of deliberately choosing to sacrifice the captives for political considerations, adding that he's ignored meeting requests, and they said that the writing is on the wall. They said Secretary Rubio of the U.S., our Secretary of State, made time to meet with families 3 times just this past week, and the families concluded by holding the Prime Minister personally responsible for the fate of the hostages. Now, there seem to be battles internally within the Israeli government, particularly between the military and senior leaders. The IDF chief has argued with lawmakers as there has been almost a complete halt in the ceasefire negotiations. IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir criticized Israeli leaders over the lack of progress in terms of negotiations. This was just last night. According to Channel 13 News in Israel, Zamir argued with lawmakers, "I'm preparing the military for an operation, recruiting reservists to defeat Hamas as you instructed. Why isn't the negotiating team traveling all over the world to formulate a proposal? Why is the Mossad chief, Barnea, sitting there? Why are you in Israel? Go force a deal." According to the report, Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, who heads the ceasefire negotiating team, reportedly responded to Zamir by pointing to his past mistakes. "You stood there and said that the U.S. would not fight us with Iran. And in the end, everything happened contrary to what you said, contrary to your assessments." Dermer added, there's a deal on the table now, and it's only there because we did not listen to you. The chief of staff reportedly replied, then take the offer. According to a political source, Netanyahu during the meeting spoke out furiously against leaks, which he said endanger combat soldiers and the hostages. Meanwhile, 8 ultra-Orthodox draft dodgers were arrested just before boarding a flight on their way to Ukraine from Tel Aviv. There have been updates about Qatar. Prior to the recent Doha strike, Israel's external intelligence agency, the Mossad, had declined to carry out a plan for ground operatives that would kill senior Hamas leaders in Qatar. This was due to concerns that the attack would rupture the agency's relationship with the Qataris. The Mossad's refusal to conduct a ground operation influenced how the airstrike was carried out this past week. Israel gave the U.S. notice of the strike on Qatar just minutes before the attack, so close to the actual launching of the missiles that there was no way to reverse or halt the order. That was according to senior U.S. defense officials. They told the Wall Street Journal that Israel launched the long-range missiles on a high trajectory that avoided Saudi Arabia's airspace, according to U.S. officials. But Axios, which is an article a journal that comes out of DC, contradicts this claim and says, which Reuters also reported, that Netanyahu did inform Trump before the bombing of Qatar, and that he was aware before the strike actually occurred. They cited Israeli officials in this claim. Now, the White House says that's not the case, that Trump had no opportunity to oppose the strike, even if the timeline would have been tight, that it just wasn't possible. Now, Netanyahu this past week repeated the claim that the strike on Qatar was wholly independent. Israel acted alone. He also rejected claims that the strike on Doha failed. He said that it sent a very clear message to terrorists. Qatar will today host an emergency summit of Arab and Islamic heads of state in response to Israel's attack on Hamas leaders in Doha. There was a draft resolution reviewed by Reuters that condemned what it describes as Israel's genocide, ethnic cleansing, starvation, siege, and colonizing activities and expansion policies. Arab foreign ministers met in Doha yesterday to lay groundwork for today's summit. Regarding Lebanon today, locals reported that 7 people were wounded after another IDF strike on what's believed to be Hezbollah targets in the south of Lebanon in Nabatea. The Air Force of Israel announced that they attacked the command center in news today. In terms of international updates, the UN General Assembly on Friday voted 142-10 to endorse a declaration outlining tangible, time-bound, and irreversible steps towards a two-state solution between Palestine and Israel. This was ahead of the September 22nd meeting, which the UK, France, Canada, Australia, and Belgium are expected to formally recognize the Palestinian state. Egypt's President al-Sisi said that Israel's actions are undermining current and future peace treaties. And the UK has excluded Israelis from their leading defense college over the escalating war in Gaza. Officials confirmed today this is a decision that the Israeli military has condemned as disgraceful. This is the Royal College of Defense Studies in London. Starting next year, Israelis will not be able to attend programs. It offers professional defense and security education to members of the British Armed Forces and an additional 50 countries that are allies of the UK. In the U.S., President Trump has said all bets are off. He's warned Hamas not to use hostages as human shields against the Israeli ground offensive. He responded on Monday to reports that Hamas was moving Israeli hostages above ground in order to use them as human shields. So Trump responded on social media, addressing Hamas leaders, saying all bets are off. He called the alleged action a human atrocity and demanded that the group release all hostages now. Netanyahu responded by saying, "Thank you, President Trump, for your unflinching support of Israel's battles against Hamas and the release of all hostages." Meanwhile, Secretary of State Rubio is headed to Qatar to reignite Gaza ceasefire talks. If he can make progress, God be with him. But I don't put my hope in our U.S. leadership in that regard. Tucker Carlson implies that Netanyahu has acted disgracefully after the recent death of conservative pundit Charlie Kirk was assassinated and killed. Vice President J.D. Vance seemed to defend the Israeli leader's reaction to the far-right activist's death, while he hosted the Late Pundits Talk radio show on Monday. Tucker Carlson appeared as a guest on the Charlie Kirk show and seemed to criticize Netanyahu's response to Kirk's murder. It's not helpful for heads of state to jump in and say he lived for my cause. That's disgusting, actually. Don't do that. That turns everyone off. You don't help your own cause. It's also literally untrue. Meanwhile, Christians in the Middle East are still under significant pressure. I was just in touch this week with Christians from the village of Taipei. They said that while there have been no attacks, as in recent past months, settlers have come into the village. The village is 100% Christian. They come in at night. They roam around the town. They reach as far as the center of the town. And the person I was in touch with said that the behavior of settlers is understandable to us. It's a provocation to citizens, pushing them to attack the settlers. Consequently, any action or aggression by the settlers will be justified as a reaction in self-defense. We're aware of this, and we're thwarting their opportunity. Pray for Christians, pray for all Palestinians living under occupation in East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. Pray for Israelis and internationals who long for their loved ones to be released from captivity. Pray for Palestinian families whose families are held in Israeli prisons unjustly. Pray for all who suffer. Continue to work towards peace. Do not be discouraged. May we not give up. In the name of Christ. Amen.